Hello everyone, thanks for coming outside me today. Today, since there is no 2021 ATA show, I had to get a little creative. I went down to my local shop to try out some of the new flagship level bows that have not been released yet for 2021. So I hope you enjoyed this review, and if you would like to see others from the flagships of some of the major companies for 2021, I will put those links to that playlist in the description below, and you can check those out as well so you can make a good buying decision. So the next bows that we're looking at this year are from HOYT, and HOYT actually has done something brand new this year, a totally brand new cam system, completely brand new, since 2003. I'm talking like 18 years of cam system new. So kudos on HOYT for trying something different. I had the ability to shoot the RX5 and the Ventum 30. Love to give you my opinion on how I thought they shot this year, and spoiler alert, they're not bad. So for many, many years, Matthews and HOYT were the Chevy and Ford of the bow world, and they were up there for quite some time. And now, quite frankly, I think a lot of the smaller companies have come up and have overtaken them by a mile. I personally think Bowtech is doing some really good things. I think Elite right now, in terms of what you can do with a bow, are right on top of the pile, or at least right up there with Bowtech. And then you've got Prime is doing some different things. PSE's, I think, starting to take over a lot of the mid-price market, which I think a lot of the bigger companies have left behind. And I think HOYT and Matthews, even though Matthews sells a boat ton of bows, you need to start changing your game and getting up with what's going on here in the 21st century. You need to start getting some rotating modules so a dealer doesn't need to buy a whole bunch of different things. Takes seconds to set up, snap and easy breezy to tune, no top hats, no yokes to twist, no bow press needed. A lot of companies have figured this out. HOYT is now kind of starting to jump on the bandwagon and at least do something different. And so for this year, instead of going with their hybrid cam, or what they called their cam and a half system for decades, they've now gone with a 3-track binary cam. So that puts them, Bowtech, Athens, and Elite all in the 3-track binary cam flagship market, which is pretty cool. I don't know who owns the patent there, but someone's making money. In typical HOYT fashion, they are making some really solid hunting bow options here in that 30 to 32 inch axle range, which is kind of a bread and butter HOYT range. You don't really see very many bows nowadays from HOYT that are in that 34, 35, 36 inch offering, axle to axle length anyhow, outside of their target lineup. Their Ventum 30, as it implies, is 30 inches axle to axle, a little bit over a 6-inch brace height, and a normal weight there in the sub 4s there, or in the low 4s, excuse me, for an aluminum hunting bow. Lots of bells and whistles on the HOYT this year. They have like a Picatinny Weaver rail system in the front, which I still don't really understand. We don't have any of those sights in the shop for me to play around with. They still have the integrated rest on the back of the bow, which is nice. You can get that from QAD, and they're still rocking a lot of their string stops and rotating cam modules, which we have seen in the past. Both the draw lengths on the RX5 and the Ventum 30 are from 25 to 30 inches, and it's on one cam, which is also a new thing for HOYT. HOYT usually has a 1, 2, and 3 size cam, and then they make those cams specific to a certain shorter range of draw lengths, instead of a lot of manufacturers making these cams from like 25 to 32 or something, where you lose a lot of efficiency in the lower draw lengths, and you gain efficiency obviously when you get over 30 inches IBO speed. So there's kind of a loss of optimization. HOYT usually has gone with those 3 different cam sizes to improve the optimization as much as possible. The issue is that if you have a guy that wants to optimize a number 2 cam by making it maxed out at 28 inches, when he goes to sell that bow and a guy he wants to sell it to is 29 inches, he's got to get whole new cams for it, which is not cheap. Then the labor to replace them isn't cheap, and it really waters down the bow market when you want a different cam. So a lot of people in the past have just got the largest cam possible, shot it at the less optimized draw length, and just been with that. So it's nice to see HOYT now just going with one cam, and you have a different module, which is obviously significantly cheaper, and you don't need a bow press to replace. So you have one that goes from like 28 or 25, 28 and a half, I think, and then the other one's 28 and a half to the full 30, which is nice. And most people then will stock that larger range from that 28 and a half to 30, because let's be honest, most of these bows are going to be purchased by full-grown men. So a 3-track binary cam system is not new. It's definitely been around for quite some time, and Elite started bringing it back a few years ago. Bowtech has now as well. Athens, which is kind of sits in the shadows, doing it also, and now HOYT has completely left the hybrid cam system and has gone to this 3-track binary system as well, which is pretty nice because binary cam systems are a lot less fickle to work on, at least in my opinion, having worked on a lot of them over the years, than say a hybrid cam system or a single cam system. They just, since everything's exactly the same, both top and bottom, and your cable lengths are the same, it makes these easier to tune, which is nice because HOYT Hoyts in the past have been a little bit fickle. I've owned several of them, the last one being a Hoyt Carbon Element. They can be a little bit of a pain in the butt to tune. I imagine these ones will go really, really well and make shop life a lot simpler. But it doesn't matter if a bow can tune if it can't shoot. So let's talk about that a little bit. So the Ventum 30 shot very well in terms of after the shot. However, the draw cycle is pretty rough. I mean, I shouldn't say it's pretty rough, but it definitely has an obvious hump. I don't want to say it's as bad as the Bowtech Solution this year, which has a pretty obvious hump, but again, that's a speed bow. Hoyt's trying to get as much optimization out of their cams as possible. Hoyt has one of the companies that is concerned with speed, and there's nothing wrong with being concerned with speed in a hunting bow lineup. You definitely want speed in a hunting bow lineup, way more than you're worried about it than for the average target shooter. So it doesn't surprise me that there is a little bit of a hump, but it really does stack up real quick there on the back end. Now the front part, unlike the Bowtech Solution, is a lot easier through the draw cycle, which is pretty typical for a binary cam system. Actually, if I really had anything to compare it to, it'd be a lot like the Impulse from Elite, the Impulse 31 and the Impulse 34. Nice and stiff and firm in the front where you expect a draw cycle of 60-70 pounds. Then all of a sudden it's like you hit this extra back wall and then there's this hump and then it dumps over. Now the Hoyt doesn't have nearly a high drop off as the Elites did, because the Elites were pushing 90% at the time, let off at least. The Hoyt, you can adjust between 80 and 85% let off. And actually, let's talk about that for a second. That module on the Hoyt has a much wider profile than any Hoyt module in the past, and you get a much firmer, thank God, you get a much firmer back wall out of the Hoyts this year than I've seen on Hoyts in a long time, which is fantastic. It's a much wider system and much deeper system, much like the Bowtech pegs they've gotten thicker and thicker over the years, and they've decreased how acute that string angle is when they come around to make contact with the cables, to have the cable stop action. The same thing's true of Hoyt. I mean, it's got to be twice as thick and twice as wide, which allows for a lot more positive contact on the cable, and therefore you get a much firmer back wall, which thank goodness, because if you haven't shot a Hoyt in a while, at least from like the 2016, 17, 18, 19 range, you'll know it's got one of the spongiest back walls in the industry, which is really a shame because Hoyt makes some great bows. I shot them for a long time, actually from 2003 to 2012. I didn't own anything else. So they make some really good bows, and they definitely are producing some good ones here in 2021. However, the RX5, oh boy, let's talk about carbon bows. The RX5 is 30 inches axle to axle, 6¼ inch brace height, which is an eighth bigger, which I don't know why we're measuring that. Let's just stick to whole and half increments here. But they're also cruising at 4.4 pounds for a carbon bow. What? 4.4 pounds is like your regular aluminum hunting bow. And I understand that like carbon, it's not as cold in cold weather when you go to grip it, but like 4.4 pounds for a carbon bow, and the MSRP is a solid $500 to $600 more than the Ventum 30, and it's almost the exact same specs. Why? I don't get it. I feel bad because it was by far the most dead-in-the-hand, vibe-free, and quiet Hoyt carbon that I have ever heard before. And I've shot a whole bunch of them over the years. Even the RX4 pales in comparison to this one. I don't know what they did with the RX5, maybe just adding all the extra weight. The finish was an olive drab finish, which allowed kind of like a powder coat feel to it. It actually was really nice in the hand, but it shot very well. No vibration at the end of the shot, which I was very surprised with. No punch, no jump. But again, it basically is an aluminum bow at that point. Most of the time, a carbon bow is a lot lighter, that 3.7 to 3.8, 3.9. And you think that half a pound doesn't make a whole lot of a difference. But when you're talking a carbon and it's high modules and it's tubular, you'll get a pretty good punch on the forend. And with the hunting bow, with the stabilizer, you're not too worried about it. But this time it's 4.4 pounds. I just don't see an advantage here. I think you're much better off buying the Ventum and shooting an aluminum bow and worrying about all the aluminum things instead of shelling out the extra $500-600 for a carbon. That's just me. Now, it is still by far one of the better bows. And for some reason, its draw cycle was a little bit rougher than the Ventum, even though it's its same cam system. And I shot it first, so I definitely was a lot fresher than when I shot the Ventum, and the Ventum definitely felt smoother. That hump was a lot less. Now, that could be how the bow was tuned, that could be the cams, who knows. But at least on anecdotally, the Ventum was a little bit easier on the draw cycle, even though it's the same cam, same 30-inch draw length, and same 70 pounds. I think HOYT is definitely taking some steps in the right direction. I think they've been kind of stagnant for a few years, and so I'm glad to see them actually trying something a little bit different. I hope it continues to progress and they continue to add things, maybe kind of jump on the tunability bandwagon that Elite and Bowtech currently have. I think that's a great place to kind of get going. I think Matthews will eventually get there, and you don't want to be the last big brand kind of left behind. So I think they've made some great bows for this year. I think the Ventum 30 would be my pick between it and the Carbon RX5, but if you're all about carbon and spend a lot of money on a flagship level bow, heck, go for it. So that's all for this video. If you have any questions about the HOYT lineup for 2021 or any of the other bows that I looked at this year, follow links in the description below. Hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, send me an email, or leave a comment here on YouTube. Hope you're able to get outside, enjoy the sport of archery hunting if you so choose. Definitely enjoy God's beautiful creation, and we'll get to see you next time.